Once you have finished exporting the query to an Excel file, go ahead and double click on the file and pull it up in Excel. You should see something similar to the following. Scroll down to the bottom of the worksheet, the active worksheet, to verify that we do in fact have all of the data that we exported. And here, in fact, we do. We see we have 97,030 rows, or 97,030 records. You'll notice the first column appears with the pound symbol. The pound symbol here indicates that the column is not wide enough to display the data. So to resize the column, I can double click on the border between column A and column B, the headers, and it will automatically resize the column to display all of the data that I'm working with. I'm going to do that for several of the other columns as well. I find it easier to work with when I can view all of the information present. So our next task is to summarize this massive amount of data in a meaningful fashion. So specifically, if we go back to the case and we look at what's being asked of us, we've now moved on to the pivot table section of the case, and this is case 3, and in case 3 we are being asked to create a series of 4 pivot tables. And the very first pivot table that we're going to be asked to create is to create customer sales by product. So here we want to analyze the purchase patterns of customers. And there's some additional detail provided, but basically we're trying to understand who EMB's #1 customer is, who's buying the most product. So to create this analysis, we are going to create a pivot table, and we can do so by going to the Insert menu and then selecting Pivot Table. And as long as you have a cell highlighted in the data you want to analyze, the Pivot Table wizard will automatically select the entire range for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and Insert Pivot Table and then select OK. And Excel gives me the following. When you first pull up a pivot table report, they look a little bit different. And pivot tables are a wonderful, wonderful, super useful feature of Microsoft Excel. And basically what you're able to do is create dynamic reports. So you can create reports on the fly in real time based on any criteria that you specify. And in addition, you can instantly modify the report to change it and make edits. Pivot tables are wonderful, partially because they do an excellent job of summarizing a large amount of data, and also, more importantly, they let you interact with the data. They let you answer multiple what-if questions on the fly. So when you work with a pivot table, just kind of think about what a typical report looks like. In a typical report, you have rows of things down the left-hand side. You have columns of things going across the top. And then you have data values in the middle that you're trying to report on and summarize. So when you build your pivot table, all you do is click and drag the fields to be either columns, rows, or values. We also have this section called filters. Pivot tables are nice also because you can learn by trial and error. So don't be afraid to try a few things. I am going to start off listing all of my customers as rows, specifically my customer last name. So I can click and drag down to the row column. And now I see the pivot table itself has been updated, and I see a list of the last names of all of my customers. And in the casebook, I'm being asked to um, total or sum the total sales for each customer, so the total purchases of each customer. And I'm looking at my field list, and I have quantity and I have unit price, but I don't actually have total sales. So I'll need to create a calculated column. And the easiest way to do this is to go back to my original data worksheet and insert a new column. So I'm going to go ahead and right click immediately to the right of column H, click on insert. I'm going to create a new column. I'll just call it total sales. And here I'd like to tell Excel a formula. So I'm going to type the equals key. And total sales for the transaction is just going to be our quantity times our price. So in this case, it's G2 times H2. I press enter. It performs the calculation for me. I can use the autofill by double clicking in the lower right hand corner. This is a huge time saver. Oops, I didn't quite hit the right part of the screen, so double click. Again, here I have almost 100,000 records, and if I had to type that formula in over and over and over again, it would be impossible for me to do that. So with autofill, I type my formula one time. By double clicking on the lower right corner, it's going to automatically fill the formula in all the way down through the remainder of the spreadsheet. So huge time saver. Now that I have my total sales, I can go back to my pivot table and look at my field list, and you'll notice that it hasn't been updated for us. And there's a reason for this. What I need to do is I need to actually refresh my pivot table. So to refresh my pivot table, you'll see there's a menu option called Pivot Table Tools. I'm going to go to the Analyze tab on the Pivot Table Tools, and you can think of this as kind of like refreshing a web browser. So there's this refresh button. I'll go ahead and select refresh, and now I see this new field called Total Sales appear in my field list. I would like for this total sales to show up as a value that I'm going to sum. So I click and drag total sales to my values, and I get the following. And believe it or not, this actually looks pretty good. I may want to format the column so it looks a little bit easier to read. So I right click on the column, hit format cells. I'm going to choose number with thousand separators. I'll choose currency. No decimal places, and I get the following. I can actually sort this pivot table with just a couple of clicks by clicking on the very first row of data and then hitting the sort and filter button. Here I want to sort largest to smallest, and I see someone with the last name of Austin is my #1 customer. Austin, this is Miles Austin in this case, bought $7,303,902. There's a word of caution here. Because we are using customer last name, there may be some situations where customers have the same last name, and in that case the total sales number being reported would actually be the total sales for multiple customers. So for example, if I double click on Jones, it is going to give me all of the sales for people with the last name of Jones. And I can see we have a Chris Jones and a Felix Jones, so a couple of different Joneses. So using the customer last name, as it turns out, is not the best way to create this pivot table report if I'm trying to understand who my best customer is. So what I would rather do is I'd rather create a field to display the combined full name of a customer. So I'm going to insert a new field just like I did last time, and this time I'm going to call it customer full name. I'm going to type in a formula. Excel has a built-in formula called concatenate, C-O-N-C-A-T-E-N-A-T-E. It's for combining multiple text fields. I'm going to combine cell C2. I'm going to add a space between the first name and the last name, so I do quote, space, quote, add another comma, and then I'm going to add it to D2, close out my formula, and so here I have concatenate. I'm taking 3 text strings, C2, a space, and D2, and then I'm combining them all together. So when I press enter, double click to make the column wider, I get the full name of the customer. I'm going to double click the lower right corner to autofill the entire column, customer full name. Autofill, again, super wonderful. Just filled in 97,000, almost 100,000 formulas for us. And a quick scan shows they all look very accurate. They all look very good. Alright, so now I have the customer full name. I can go back to my pivot table. I can get rid of my customer last name. And I need to refresh my pivot table. So let's go to the refresh button. We have customer full name added as a row. Go back to my sum of total sales. Let's see if I can get my sort going. Sort shows up in a couple of places. I'll go to home, largest to smallest. And now I see Miles is still the top customer, and then Orlando Scandrick is second, and so on and so forth. But now we see the 2 customers with the last name of Jones are now separated accordingly. So we have Felix Jones getting pulled out and separated. So this is a kind of a quick look at how to create, in this case, a report detailing customers' purchases for the 3-month period. We're basically taking 100,000 records of sales data, and with just a few clicks, I mean this took less than 5 minutes. With a few clicks, we're summarizing that data in a meaningful way to get the information we need. Another tremendous feature of the Excel pivot table is that we can interact with the data. So you saw me previously, if I double click on a cell, it'll drill down and show me all the details. So if I want to see all of Orlando Scandrick's purchases, I double click, and this is everything Orlando Scandrick purchased. Also, if I want to update or let's say change the pivot table, in this case I want to show product purchases and the names of the products being bought by our customers. I can take the product name and add it as a column, and this is really pretty cool. So with just one simple click and drag, so click, hold, and drag, I see the breakdown for Miles Austin. So of the 7.3 million that Miles bought in the quarter, we can see 3 million were extreme mountain bikes, 1 million were the ultra mountain bikes, 2 million were the plus mountain bikes, and so on and so forth. I can also see product totals, product line totals all the way down at the bottom. So here I see the mountain bike is the #1 product at 14.124 million. So that's by far the #1 seller. Even though we're not looking at products at this point, it's still useful to know. So for the quarter we had roughly $50 million in sales, and then we can see the breakdown. If I wanted to sort and maybe see who the #1 customers are in each product line, I could do that as well. It turns out Miles is going to show up near the top of just about everything. So again, that was just a click and a drag of the product name to the pivot table itself. If for some reason your field list gets hidden, you can always, you close it down maybe, you can always show it back again by clicking on field list. I can also edit my pivot table to display just a subset of the products overall. So instead of displaying all of my products, let's just say I want to pick the bikes. So the Mountain Bike Plus, and the Ultra Mountain Bike. So I clicked on my column label, and it let me apply different filters. And in this case, I'm just selecting the 3 values I'd like to display. Excel has a variety of options here. You can filter based on a value. You can filter based on the label. Very, very powerful. Lots and lots of different options. So here we see bike purchases and only the bike purchases.